Hey everyone, how are you? I have some good news. Something happened to me recently which just really filled me up. Gave me a lot of hope for the future that, like, if this could happen on a bigger scale, then we would be in a completely different place in our country than where we actually are. So it was a relatively simple thing that happened to me. It was just a conversation with an Uber driver. All right? So I'm very politically active. I go to a lot of events nearby, volunteering for local campaigns, meetings, that kind of thing, and I don't have a car, so I Uber there, right? And some of the Uber drivers, they're chatty, and that's cool with me. We strike up a conversation. And, a few days ago, I had a trip with an Uber driver, and we struck up a conversation, and we started talking politics. Now, I know that it seems these days that it is basically impossible for liberals and conservatives to talk to each other and to understand each other. Now, I've always found that like wrong. It shouldn't be that way. That there has to be a way for us to understand each other. We're not all crazy people here. And that's really what started me on this whole project several years ago, was the fact that I couldn't get on the same page with my relatives on, issues of basic fact. On, as it came in regards to like COVID or January 6th or a lot of this other political stuff. And that's how I got into all of this, into this kind of pro-democracy, counter-propaganda space. And all of the things that I've been practicing and learning just to be able to talk with my own relatives, I use that, for other people as well, obviously. And actually, what I found is that these techniques that I've honed are remarkably effective on people who are like strangers to me. Because with my relatives, firstly, they're very entrenched in their conservative beliefs, some of them more than others. And secondly, all these people changed my diapers. They saw me when I was a little baby. So they don't maybe necessarily take me as seriously as a stranger might. So with strangers, I actually have a much easier time of it, of kind of convincing them and creating that common understanding. And I want to tell you guys about one specific example and how it went, so that I could really go through step by step how I actually do this. Because what I do in most of my videos, I give you guys information. I give you background. I try to give some explanations so that we can understand these complex topics. But how do you actually get that information to reach the people who we need to convince? How do we get the people on the other side? As I mentioned before, just shooting facts at them doesn't really work. It is all about emotion. The thing is that rationality, as I've said before, it's not like some natural state of the human mind, right? It is not even something that we do. It's a state of mind that you can have, but you have to make a conscious choice to be in that state of mind. And emotion, but especially powerful negative emotion like anger and fear, make it very, very hard to put oneself in a rational state of mind. It makes us very irrational. And when you're dealing with people, you have to be able to reach them kind of on that emotional wavelength first. You have to make sure that the person is in a state of mind to hear you, and likewise that you're in a state of mind to hear them. So what I did with this Uber driver, he starts chatting with me and he asked me how I got into kind of politics and related and whatnot. And I told him the truth. I told him how a few years ago I'd been a paramedic in Israel during COVID, and I'd seen how all of the misinformation was spreading and kind of affecting people, killing them everywhere. And the reason why I said it this way is not just because it's true, but because I didn't want to be coming at him since I didn't know who this guy was. I didn't want to be coming at him like, I hate Trump, this kind of thing. You can't come with your partisan flag held high. You have to take it slow in the beginning and not try to offend a person before you've started talking to them. So we established that, and I explained to him that I used to be more conservative from my family, and then I started becoming more liberal, largely in response to kind of what was going on around COVID and a lot of the things that I was seeing as misinformation. And he asked me a question: how do you know what information's real or fake? Which, it's a pretty obvious and pretty important question. And I'll tell you this, I had a feeling from the beginning of this conversation that this guy was fairly conservative. And at that point, I was sure of it. Because I'll tell you, firstly, he was an older white guy, falls in the right demographics. And secondly, paranoia and distrust is kind of the foundation of the conservative mindset in America these days. And the funny thing is that they're so, just as a side note, they're so untrustworthy, untrusting of everything else, but they believe everything that comes out of Fox News without hesitation. But that's a separate point. Let's just say that's not what I told the Uber driver. When I was telling him, so he asked me that question, right? How do you figure out what's real and what's fake? And conservatives are very often going to come at you with this, and it is a reasonable question. And I'll tell him what is the honest and pretty simple answer. Just double check. It's amazing how actually not hard this is. It's relatively easy to find out what's propaganda and what's BS when people are just straight up lying or making things up. Because you would think if you were a propagandist and you were sending out some false stories, that you'd want to have some backup for those stories, some sort of, documentation or witnesses or evidence or something prepared so that you could make the fake look good and be credible. Not at all. Not at all. They don't bother with any of that. What they do these days is that they just tell 5 different lies. Like with the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapsing. Was it a terrorist? Was it DEI? Was it Biden? Was it George Soros? Was it whatever? Antifa? And there's literally nothing behind any of it. Just try to find any detail. Like, what was the name of this Antifa DEI terrorist? Where were they from? What bomb did they use? Like, anything. Any level of detail. Just try to double check. Or, if, you'll hear someone say, President Biden said XYZ. Just double check. Just Google it. If he actually did say that, 19 different papers will have reported on it. But a lot of times, it's literally just made up. You'll find that the person just made that stuff up and there's literally nothing else there behind it. Just double check everything. Because the way that it works is modern propaganda uses the flood the zone strategy developed by Steve Bannon, where they just put out 10 different lies and assume that no one's going to have time to check through everything, and that you're just going to put up your hands and say, I don't know, I'll believe whatever I want to believe. Or what I'll believe whatever the people I like tell me. And that's it. That's how it goes. But it really is that simple. It's just double checking. And the other thing, because he and I really started to get into this conversation, like, I could tell he was reacting well to the things that I was saying. Because I wasn't saying anything, super complicated. Like I said, just double check. And I was respecting his intelligence. I'm not saying like, oh, you're a dumbass for believing this stuff. What really helps me is that because I changed my mind on a lot of things, and because I had to learn so many of these things, like how do you tell the difference between real stuff and propaganda, I treat this person like myself before I learn these things. And I explain it in a way that I've come to understand it. just help this person follow along with me on the same journey I've already taken, and never forgetting that I was also once at the start of this journey and didn't know a goddamn thing. And, that's how you have to come at people. You have to come at them with respect and not treat them like idiots. Now, the second thing I told him is we started getting into why we have so many disagreements and why it's so hard for people on the left and the right to try to talk to each other. And one of the big issues is language. It's language. That the way that we use words has been purposefully manipulated. And I'll say as an aside here, almost entirely by the right. I didn't say that to him at the time. I just explained that the extremes, are manipulating the way that we use words. However, in reality, it's like 99% this is being done by the right. And I gave him an example. Let's say we're talking about gun control versus gun rights. Now, I believe, for example, let's say, that people should be allowed to have guns. My dad is a gun owner. I've been shooting since before I could ride a bicycle. Nothing wrong with that. But he is licensed, he keeps them locked up, he does all of the things, and I think everyone else should be required to do that. You have to get your licensing, you have to get proper background checks, you have to get some training, you have to store it in a secure facility. Basically, be a responsible gun owner, as opposed to what they're doing in Tennessee, for example, where they're just letting, children buy guns with no waiting period, no background check, and they can have unlimited concealed carry anywhere, including in schools. That is insane. And that's what is actually literally being done, like in states like Tennessee. And when I see that compared to that, of course I'm a gun control guy, because that is just chaos. Whereas if you're a conservative like my Uber driver, all you're going to be hearing from Fox News all day is that the Democrats want to come in, raid your house, and confiscate all your guns. They just want to take everything. Now, this is a lie. This is a lie. There are no Democrats who want to take everyone's guns. It has not been proposed as a policy by any Democrats to take everyone's guns. No Democratic state has attempted to do this in any way. But yet, Republican, if you're a conservative and you hear on Fox News that the Democrats want to take all of your guns, of course, relative to that, you are a gun rights person. Even if you believe all the same things that I believe about, requires for safe storage and background checks and all that kind of thing, all the proper safety stuff. We believe in the same thing. But I call myself a gun control guy and you call yourself a gun rights guy. And because of that, we're going to disagree with each other if we just talk and open it up like that. And we might even get angry at each other. And I might say, oh, you're some lunatic who's going to, let kids get shot in schools. And you're going to say that I'm some lunatic that wants to take all of everyone's guns and leave them unarmed and defenseless, when neither of those things are true. And all that it requires is for us to have a little bit of patience and understand that the way that we use words is different. And that we have to get to the bottom of things before we really make a judgment about what the other person's all about. And that also applies to not just language, but to one's beliefs. Like, for example, a lot of conservatives might have beliefs about trans people that are extremely offensive to liberals, right? But they don't know anything about trans people. They've never met one of them. All they know are the things that they've been told on Fox News. Likewise, I've talked to conservatives who genuinely do believe that the only way to end racism is to remove any mention of race from the law or from textbooks or anything like this. They believe that because they have been lied to repeatedly and they don't know that that's just historically and practically untrue. But that doesn't mean, but we come at them, and when we hear these things, we assume that, oh, they must be racist because they hold these beliefs. Not necessarily. They could just be, being lied to. And we have to be very, very careful around that. Because one of the other things that my Uber driver was telling me was that when he's in the office, he feels judged because he has another job other than as an Uber driver. He does that apparently as a hobby because he likes to drive. Now, in his office job, he's got a lot of more liberal coworkers, he says. And he feels judged by them. He feels uncomfortable. He feels like he can't express his beliefs. Now, I'm going to explain how I responded to him in the moment. I said to him, you say you feel judged, but I wonder, are you sure? Like, have you ever really gone over and talked to those people? Or do you just have a gut feeling that if you said what you believe, that they would judge you for those things if you said them? And he starts telling me, maybe there's something to that. Maybe I haven't really talked to these people. I just get the gut feeling that because I'm conservative, I'm going to be judged. And I said to him, maybe that's not the case. However, I will say this to my fellow liberals. We have a problem here. We do have a problem with this. We are quick to judge. We are quick to judge when people say things that are ignorant or that seem bigoted or what have you. And I know a lot of liberals are going to come at me when I say this, because I've had this thought myself, like, are you kidding me? With the stuff that these people say about us, that we're all pedophiles and that trans people shouldn't exist, and, calling black people the N-word and all that kind of thing, getting rid of black history and condoning slavery and all this kind of thing. And I'm like, look, I understand that there are a lot of people on the other side, like Ron DeSantis, who are scum and who say really horrible things and absolutely do hate our guts. And like, if you go to a MAGA rally, most of the people there would be perfectly happy if New York got hit with a nuclear bomb and every liberal there died. Like, they would be completely fine with that, and I understand this fully. However, there is a certain cost with being the good guy. And if we liberals want to carry our heads high and act like we're the good guys, that we're on the right side of history, we have to live by our principles. And that means recognizing that not everyone on the other side is like a Ron DeSantis, or like someone who's an oath keeper in these far-right rallies. A lot of them are just ignorant, or they were lied to, and they don't have the same information that you might have. And also, by the way, consider that you might be wrong on some things as well. There is some information on some little thing that you may have missed or may have misunderstood. And, be very careful of your own biases. But again, when dealing with others, just be aware and hold your judgment in reserve. And try to reach them first before immediately kind of condemning them as they're one of the bad guys. They're one of those people. I think that's a real failure on our part when we do that without really, really taking the chance to try to reach one of these people and save them and pull them back in. Because, I had a really good conversation with this guy. And I'll tell you, it's not the first time. In fact, I have been, to myself at least, shockingly successful in dealing with conservatives outside of my own family. Inside of the family, where I'm the little kid, it's very hard. But in the real world, when I'm just talking to people I meet in the street, or like I said, in an Uber ride or whatever, I'm getting places with people. I'm reaching them. It is possible. They are not, as locked in to the craziness and to the Trumpiness of it all as we might have thought. And I just wanted to tell you guys all of that. That there is a way out of this, that there is hope. And that's what I want to leave you with. Thanks for watching that, guys. I really appreciate it. If you liked that video, then please like the video. And also subscribe. That will be really, really helpful. And most of all, please leave a comment if you can. Because firstly, it really helps algorithmically. And also, I'm pretty new at this, and I could use the feedback. So if you could do that and also share these videos with your relatives and friends, that would be really nice. Till next time, guys. Bye-bye.